we're live and it's working. I got it working.
Oh, yeah. We got it working in record time. The boomers are getting better and better.
It's just so much better. So much. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah. Good job, Mike. It's like all I get to do is just kind of like cheerlead from the sidelines and be the old man who can't touch his toes anymore.
So
who takes to naps.
I was told I'm a little bit soft. I need to bring myself up. The problem is my volume is at max. So what I have to do instead is bring kind of everyone else down. I'm sorry.
Your volume for me just increased. I don't know what that was, but you're louder and clearer now.
That happens sometimes with my microphone. I don't know why. I'm convinced that it's possessed. So
here's the thing. This is how we know we're being watched by the feds. Is it your microphone turned up the very moment you started talking about needing to like increase your microphone levels, and like they did that manually for you, which was actually really nice of them. Thank you, feds.
Well. Cool, I got the chat working. I think the chat's working too. I can see the chat on the on this little dashboard here too, so I can like commute. Well, I thought I could fucking communicate. I guess I can't. I just got blue ball. I mean, I can still fucking chat on the on the stream here. I just gotta.
For me, I have to do too much like minority reporting to like chat and like do multiple things. Like I can't like. I'm on a phone, so I don't have like a bunch of like screen mobility.
Oh, that I understand, and luckily I have two monitors here, so that helps me. So
monitors, cool. I had a hall monitor in middle school.
You were a hall monitor?
No, I had one. Oh. I'm such a boomer that I don't even know what like the appropriate reference to monitors is. So
the hall monitor. He monitors the hall. They monitor the hall. That's what they did.
Same thing we use for our desktops, I'm sure.
Wait, are you saying that people hall monitor their desktops?
No.
Ross.
You were talking about
wait, why did I call you Ross? Monitors? I'm so sorry.
No, you were talking about how you had two monitors, and I made a bad pun about hall monitors. And
you definitely punished me with that bad pun there, David.
It's like you told me to punish it. There's a tune in the back that punishes.
I don't understand.
When I talk about I'm wearing my boomer goggles, which are like, Ray-Ban sunglasses from the 90s.
Nice. I don't understand. I was just able to fucking work that. Wait, is this the chat right here? Am I typing in the wrong thing? No, that isn't it. How come this fucking thing? Come on. I was just here. I just was able to fucking... Ooh, I'm so mad. Can I pop out this window? No, I don't want to do that. No, it's too late. I already did. Maybe I gotta reload it. Hold on, let me just reload it here.
That's like me when I'm like performing one of my home invasion operations. I also like ask myself, can I pop out this window?
Yeah, I know. Seriously, right? Fucking. I'm glad that so far everything's good. I appreciate it. It's just. It now sucks. Like, I'm ready to do this, but like our guest of honor has decided not to show up.
Be a socialist.
I want to shame them now because maybe they could hear us. Like, Ross, hey, buddy.
Yeah, I think Ross just needs like a sensu bean after like all of that really rigorous like Marxist theory reading.
Yeah, I mean, like, you really. Disclose at least like what the hell you were talking about at least. I'm kind of curious what Marxist reading you're fucking doing.
After reading over 1 hour of Marxist theory, everybody goes into Dave Rubin's recovery mode. Like that's just like the algorithm.
I guess so.
The recuperation station, we can call it.
Yes. Wait a minute. Oh, what the fuck is oh shit, did I just delete the oh wait, no. Sorry everybody, I'm just trying to see if I can fucking get the chat display going good. Because if I can get displayed here, I can pop it on the fucking on this window, and then like because you know how like Twitch and YouTube streamers put the chat on their fucking stream, like I can do that with us. Like
nice.
But I don't know if I want to do that right now as I'm waiting for Ross to get his phony ass out here.
Like, quit confirming like the socialist stereotypes, Ross. Like you can't just like show up like the dude with like milk in your beard 2 hours late and be like, hey, we're gonna win the revolution by like being like interminably late people. You got to be on time. You got to be punctual with this revolutionary shit. You know, it's a late stage capitalism. It's you got to be on it.
Yeah, I know. All right,
wait.
I texted him. I'm like, Ross, we're waiting, and their response, fuck. I'm like, wait, you told, I told you, I fucking told you, I told
Very
you at fucking 9:30 this evening. I'm like, hey, look, David's got to run late. I forgot about that, so we're not starting until fucking 11 o'clock. You got all the time to fucking recuperate from your reading. And okay, I sent the link and everything, and I'm just like, now I have to give them another fucking 5 minutes.
Damn. This is like why we do have to rebrand ourselves as being super capitalists, is because socialism has too much interpersonal baggage attached to it. Everybody who identifies as a socialist is never on time, and they never actualize everything. So seriously.
Yeah. Why do I have 2 Stream Elephants tabs here? I'm afraid to do anything because it might fucking destroy something and just destroy our fucking live stream. So, wait, chat. Yeah, I want the chat. Give me chat. I don't know if this is the right stream chat though. No, this is for Twitch. I want the Facebook chat. Maybe eventually. I'm just saying, we can move to Twitch. It's much. Well, I'm just more familiar with it. I'm not saying it's gonna be easy.
Yeah,
I
think we'll get I'm sorry. Go ahead, please. Please.
Well, I was just gonna fucking say I don't know if it's easy or not. I'm just more familiar with it. This is really my first. It's Facebook live streaming is somewhat similar. Anyway, yeah. I think eventually we should, once everybody on our Facebooks kind of know what we're doing, we should kind of move them on over to Twitch, and we might get some new people too. So
yeah, I know Twitch has its own ecosphere, but I also know there are a lot of mutual streamer friends that we have that basically they collaborate on Twitch.
Okay.
They're able to redirect viewers to Twitch and stuff like that. They kind of have their own pool of viewership, and between the networks that they've established between each other, they're able to kind of direct that viewership towards the different channels. So I don't know, is it possible to simultaneously broadcast from Facebook and Twitch, or does it have to be exclusively one or the other?
From my understanding, if you're not monetizing your streams, you can stream from multiple platforms. There is a way to do it, but hey David, we might be rock stars from this, so I don't know about you, but I would like to kind of get a little money back from doing this to use for non-personal usage. Everybody calm down. Right. I would like this endeavor to at least pay for itself. So
well, that's great. Hey, I'm totally behind that. Yeah. I'm pretty much behind. For me, it's I just really like you as a person, and I like talking and hanging out, and that's kind of where I'm you'll do a podcast. Because before, I always used to meme about podcasts, how it was just two dudes mansplaining and pontificating, but you're actually a very observant and insightful person, so it's not just meaningless
stop circle jerking. Right now. I mean, look, I'm sorry, I do appreciate you coming to, but that's kind of the thing that I realize with people that if they get good rapport and they're able to bounce off each other pretty well, it's it's probably best to make that live and interact with people, and because I've learned a lot of stuff from you, and I feel like I could learn from more stuff. And I've learned
tons from you. There's so many foreign policy things where I'm just very happy just learning from osmosis through you, and it's great because it's for me, it's not necessarily about demonstrating how much I know. It's also about just vicariously learning things through other people, and you have insane knowledge, especially about Southeast Asia and their politics, their countries, their dynamics.
I'm gonna be real with you on that. That is actually kind of a new frontier for me. It's probably because of my girlfriend, but for me, Southeast Asia has not been really my strongest points. I might have known some stuff about Vietnam and Cambodia in the past, but I've really expanded it to now include Thailand, Myanmar, Indonesia definitely after reading the Jakarta method, and of course the Philippines.
But like those politics are also becoming so prescient now. It's like that's there's so much pertinence there. Where
Well,
it's like what is happening there has like very, very oh gosh, very real consequences for the rest of the world, especially now that like especially for the Western world now. So it's important to like understand the history of things that have happened and to like, understand how things are currently developing. And I think you have like a very unique grasp of like those concepts and things like that. And I think you're really responsible with your knowledge and your education on those things too.
Oh.
So it was awesome.
I think, well, I mean, like, yeah, Southeast Asia is going to play a huge role in the 21st century because that is one of the areas that's probably going to be the new developmental process. China has pretty much gotten to it's industrialized. It really cannot go any further. It's kind of reached the point that America has made where it's transitioning to like post-capitalist, sort of more service-based economy. So what it's basically done, I mean, this is what basically the whole Belt and Road Initiative is that China is now exporting that economic momentum to outside of China, particularly in Southeast Asia and Africa, just to keep the economic mobility going. So like now Chinese firms are getting involved in the local governments of all these countries. Philippines under the like President Duterte, for example, a few years back, like he saw opportunities with this and tried to warm up like very closely to China to get these Chinese businesses to invest in the Philippines. Problem is that, of course, America doesn't want that. And there's general xenophobia in the Philippines. Not to mention, China fucking shoots themselves in the fucking foot with having a good relationship with the Philippines because of their conflict of interest in the South China Sea or West Philippine Sea, depending on who you're talking to. So that kneecaps the whole thing. And then you have the United States now reinvesting its historical interest in the Philippines due to its past imperialism. I mean, it's going to play a larger part in containing China, and I think a crafty Filipino leader knows that and is able to, and if they have the political savvy, they can position themselves very well in between China and America and get as much economic benefit from both countries as they possibly can. I mean, yeah, but like, the problem with this though is that the people who are typically ruling the Philippines right now are like a rich oligarchy, and most of the people are poor. And usually the rich people are essentially custodians for international businesses to kind of come in and extract the resources from the country.
Wow. Oh, gosh. It's like even like observing that language. They're custodians for people who come in and extract resources.
I mean, essentially, that's it. It's an old imperial model that's just been modernized in the neo-colonial world. There's
nothing about how you can structure that concept without it sounding almost purely parasitic.
It is.
Yeah, and it's like, of course, other people might frame it differently, but just like there's kind of like a visceral intuition I have about the way you said that's like, oh, okay. It's just kind of superimposing super imperialist theme of like modern market stuff. Really quickly though, like we actually have like some very uncharacteristic overlap with this because, usually my research and like, all of my
well, hold on before you get to that, let me just say, I just wanted to say that like they're custodians in the sense that the only reason they're able to maintain their rich and power is because they put themselves in a position where they make sure that the resources are extracted to these more global north countries, and they're able to skim a little bit off the top, and that's what they use to enrich themselves and to maintain the power base. So
that's amazing. And like basically, like one thing that I was going to touch on with Ross, now it feels like I'm shadow boxing a little bit because he's literally not here. It sounds a little bit dishonorable for me to be talking about this.
I know. Ross, you see what happens when you take too long? Now we're talking shit about you. You're not even here. So
now we get to attack your points without you being able to defend them.
Now I'm just
socialist is that like you can't actually be here when we're like tearing your essay apart.
Just gonna ad hominem the shit out of you now, Ross.
Right, with statistics, which means that it's not an ad hominem. But one thing that I was actually one thing we were talking about before we went live was how I was kind of researching if there was any kind of correlation between countries that have expansive welfare states and the participation levels within those countries when it comes to political activism. And, South Korea has been moving towards a more service-oriented economy as well.
Yeah.
And they have it's like, 33.9% of South Korea's GDP goes towards public expenditures. And that's just kind of like where their primary thrust is. That's where their focus is. But at the same time, and I really wish Ross was here to kind of, entangle me a little bit about this, is that they have a very robust welfare system as well. And despite having a robust welfare system, they were able to get one of the most impressive turnouts for their revolutionary political action that's been seen in the modern world. It's like it was, I think, at the peak of their protests in 2016 and 2017, 1.2 million people descended on the Capitol or participated regionally in some capacity against President Park at the time.
That's amazing.
It's an insane percentage. But what this does is it decisively disproves the notion that welfare states in some way kind of placate the masses and suppress oppositional politics. It's just not empirical. And I'm going to speak on behalf of Oliver a little bit because, I asked him about this and he said, it's like welfare doesn't necessarily have to suppress that. When people are sustained, when people are able, of course it makes sense that more people would be able to participate in revolutionary politics against some kind of identifiable perceived threat. So,
well, I mean, I would just add to that in the fact that if you want to reach out and offer some type of tangible solidarity with people, social welfare programs can really do that to show that no, we care about you. We're here for you. We're with you in this. As long as it's a means to an end, that should be fine. I feel like there's a lot of socialist critique that no, you placate people and it's basically there's a fallacy to this, and I think that I think in their mindset it's if you just let enough people suffer, eventually they're going to snap into some sort of universal class consciousness, and then collectively they're just all going to rise up. And if that was the case, and I wrote about this, things like fascism and genocide, ethnic cleansing, these wouldn't be things because you can't expect people to just fucking naturally spring into action. You kind of have to build communities first.
Right. Well, look at other countries that do have robust welfare states.
There they are. Is this?
Hello.
Yes, this is Ross.
Ross. Okay.
Hello, Ross. I can't hear you very well. Is that your connection? Can you speak a little bit more closely to the microphone?
Hello.
I turned you up a bit, Ross, just to make it okay. Say something.
My name is Ross.
Oh, okay. I'm hearing you pretty good, David. How do you hear?
You can hear him just fine. How am I, by the way? I was trying to I was wrestling with that new microphone that I bought. Apparently this old boomer, this old dog has to wrestle exponentially more because it wasn't working. So
I think you are fine. I hear you just fine.
You sound like a twat. No, I'm joking.
Well, thanks. Mike thinks I'm fine. I'm literally going to put that in my dating profile. Mike Greeny thinks I'm fine.
Just fine.
That's all
I want to.
That will get you very far.
Okay. I think so too.
Hang on. Let me just see how everybody sounds.
I think you sound fine.
Mike also looks fine according to everybody on the internet. Just saying.
Oh yeah, no, that's. You don't even need to say that. That's objective.
Okay.
It's redundant. Right, but hey, just because that's the old revolutionary adage, right? We're talking about revolutionary terminology. Just because it's been said before doesn't mean it doesn't need to be said again. So,
all right. Well, what's up, everybody? We're just gonna get into this because I really want to get through this. I want to make sure
we have recording.
Oh yeah. We're Ross. I didn't know if I told you we're live too right now. So.
Wow.
Are you okay?
Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
Are you sure?
No, we're good. We're good.
Is there something you wanted? Did you want to like insult me offline first before we? Oh yeah. Okay. Well,
we're doing it live.
Too bad. Too bad, Ross. Ross, I told you at 9:30 that we were going to be a bit late.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Well, I was confused by some of the directions you gave me. You go, we're good. So this is the famous David.
I'd say more infamous.
Infamous. Okay.
I'm actually gonna hold on a second.
That's how I identify at the moment. Yeah.
Are you in Cuba? What's this?
Wait, Mike. When he says directions, like bad directions, were you Ross's Siri for a minute? Like, were you like directing him home?
No, I wouldn't say that. But
like bad. Did you tell him to turn right when he should have turned left? Because I hope nobody is like moving farther to the right after this podcast. If that's happening,
I really don't think so. Damn it! I want to like
bad directions. Don't go right, guys.
You know what's bugging me is like I want to move Ross to the bottom middle because like I feel like that's like where the guest seat should be. Whatever. I can't fucking change it. I'm not wasting my time.
Can you see? Like, I don't.
What's up? What do you want?
We're not supposed to see each other, are we?
I mean, I have my camera off. I really don't want to fucking fuck up my bandwidth by including a camera. I mean, I could. I just don't want to because I don't want to leave David out either. Because I just
do it. No, that's fine.
I know. No. I can't. My room's a mess, and if Jordan Peterson sees it, you won't leave me alone.
He'll know that anybody whose room is a mess. We know that they attend postmodern neo-Marxist university.
Yeah. It's a dead giveaway. So yeah,
that's basically like doxing somebody. If they know that I attend postmodern neo-Marxist university, they know how to assassinate me. So that's why I can't do that.
God damn.
Yeah, but I'm kind of the kind of Marxist that also hates those people. The pomos.
Is that your short? Is that the short term?
Pomos. I'm glad that we're like representing the Marxists who like Jordan Peterson here.
No, I don't like Jordan Peterson. I just
that was literally a joke. I'm sorry.
Those are fighting words. No, I'm joking.
Okay,
sure, we'll have one more.
All right. Okay. Let's just get into this. All right. So, all right, Ross, why don't you tell us a bit about yourself, what you do, a little background info, okay?
My name is Ross. I'm currently in between jobs. I'm a mathematician. I am a member of the Progressive Labor Party, which is a communist organization that's working for revolution. We do a lot of work organizing transportation workers and even soldiers and UPS workers, all over. And the world's crazy right now, and we need a revolution.
I'm sorry. I was trying to remind. I forgot the name of the party that you were associated with. I was trying to remind myself because I was talking to David about it earlier. But yeah, Progressive Labor Party. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. I cut you off. I'm sorry. Was there anything else you wanted to add?
If you just gave me more time, I would just ramble a little more. Sorry.
Okay. So your essay is. I just have some questions for you, and so I'm just going to give a little quick summary and shit. So you're
perfect. I know that.
No. Well, I don't think anybody's essays is perfect. So your essay is about bell hooks. Just for anybody who doesn't know who bell hooks is, she's a feminist writer, social activist, and born in 1952, and she's best known for her works on feminist theory, race, and class, and has authored over 30 books on these topics. And her work challenges the dominance of white, patriarchal, and capitalist systems and aims to create a more just and equitable society. So some of her works include Ain't I a Woman, Black Women and Feminism, Teaching to Transgress, Education as the Practice of Freedom, and lastly, Feminism is for Everyone, Passionate Politics. And that is the that is the work that you covered in your essay, Ross. So
Yes.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about your essay and why you chose to write it? You don't read your essay, just kind of give the main points of what you're kind of invoking here.
So the main thing was that I feel like the basis of a lot of her theory is about convincing people rather than trying to understand on what basis do you convince people. Because a lot of times there's like, a series of conversations that happen over years or maybe even over a decade. And like, you don't just, get somebody to come to your side for nothing. Usually you convince them on a basis of praxis. So that was one of my main criticisms. The other thing is like, I feel like a lot of what else was I going to say? There was a lot of stuff that she said in there that wasn't necessarily novel. Although, I mean, that's not, like there's a lot of times people will say things that aren't novel. That's not worth, crying about. But I guess the big thing was that I just feel like her entire basis is like argumentation and not like thinking about like on what basis are we arguing or like what what kind of crises or material conditions will cause somebody to think like a given person. I think that a lot of times she advocates for welfare or certain kinds of reforms that would actually blunt revolution, and she talks about revolution. And it's important to talk about, like, for instance, she talks about how a lot of welfare, like the stripping of wealth, getting rid of welfare by Reagan and just the neoliberals was very, racist. But she doesn't talk about how a lot of the welfare that came into existence was on the basis also to, prevent radical movements from forming, like FDR, or even if we talk about the civil right, not the civil rights movement,
the New Deal or what?
No, the like civil rights bill of 1965, which obviously
64?
we should all be for.
Wait, that wasn't passed. Okay.
Yeah.
Are we talking about the Civil Rights Act?
Oh, no. I think he's confused. I think they're confusing the Civil Rights Act with the Equal Rights Amendment, because the Civil Rights Act was passed, the Equal Rights Amendment was not.
Yeah, Civil Rights Act was passed
1964.
that was after 19. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Right. I think I'm thinking of the. Wait a second. I think it was the. I think it was
Wasn't
the
that
Voting Rights Act of
LBJ?
1965.
That was an LBJ thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because it literally couldn't have passed unless like JFK was assassinated. Like LBJ manipulated the political levers to make that happen. It was like some Abraham Lincoln
LBJ. That was LBJ's
signature. Most
Yeah.
That
Well,
was
I mean, whether we're talking about the Great Society, the New Deal, or a lot of the gains from the civil rights, all of them were like passed out of fear of the people, of the workers, rather than in genuine wanting to alleviate pain or something like that.
Okay.
Well, here's the thing. I want to ask something about that, because I guess we're trying to kind of like create a correlation between welfare and like political inaction. So Ross, are you familiar with the South Korean revolutionaries and what they did between like 2016 and 2017?
No, I'm.
Well, that's totally fine. Nobody has to know about this, and I know this is probably kind of like something that like a lot of us aren't like initially aware of. But South Korea actually has like a pretty robust welfare state at the moment.
We're making like isn't there like minimum wage like abysmal? It's like
their minimum wage. Well, their welfare benefits cover about 3% of the population. And of course, like, they have paternal leave, maternal leave, like a lot of things that like, we actually don't have in the United States. But their basic livelihood security program provides cash payments and other benefits, including housing and education for their citizenry that lives in poverty. So to a certain extent, like, you know, like their welfare program covers some things that, you know, we don't as easily cover in like the United States to a certain percent.
Oh, yeah.
But here's the thing is that, like, you know, even though they have a welfare state, in 2016 and 2017, up to 1.2 million protesters would descend on the Capitol to force their president out of office. And this is something that was like, it was like a protracted, like, revolutionary movement. Like they did this every day for months. 1.2 million was like the highest number, but their participation was like unfathomably impressive compared to, like, you know, like a lot of westernized standards. So this is an indication or an example of like a welfare state also being able to like facilitate very consequential revolutionary politics. And it kind of seems to me that
Are they actually revolutionary? I mean,
they kicked their most important executive official out of office. Like, that's something that, like, you know, like, hey, that's something that, like, we have a lot of people on welfare in the United States too. They didn't manage that. And that was President Park in South Korea. President Park stepped down due to like the public pressure that was kind of amassed because of like their protest movement. So I guess like one thing that I read in your essay that doesn't seem to necessarily track with reality is that welfare suppresses the animus of the masses, and that welfare is like inhibiting force against like revolutionary politics. Because in the modern era, a lot of countries that have like, you know, like robust welfare states have actually been the most hostile. Like if we even like look at like what France is doing right now, they have a lot of like, you know, government programs. They have like a lot of like collective bargaining, unionization, and all that kind of stuff. They're fucking setting fire to their buildings.
Mm-hmm. Well, I definitely wouldn't consider what you talked about with regards to South Korea to be revolutionary. Because, you know, they have to actually be attacking, you know, the productive forces. You know, they have to actually be changing the relations of production. You know, that sounds like more of a reformist movement, and not that like it doesn't have, you know, potential. You know what I'm saying? But I think it's important which Bell Hooks considers herself a revolutionary.
Does she?
I thought that she had.
Okay.
I mean, at least a lot of her essays and writing, she does talk about things as being reformist versus like stuff that's more revolutionary.
Okay.
Well, here's the thing. It's basically like, I think like what I got from your essay, and it might be wrong, and you can correct me, is that in some way like welfare suppresses political action. And we have examples of welfare states and very high levels of like political participation. So to me, it doesn't seem as though like, you know, welfare is a causative factor in suppressing political participation when political participation is highest in countries that have high levels of like welfare.
No, it's more about you're saying, okay, well, is there a direct causal link? I mean, there are many different like geopolitical and economic factors to cause why certain things happen. I'm just saying historically, whether we're talking about the reforms by Bismarck in the 1880s, 1890s, whether we're talking about the New Deal, whether we're talking about the Lyndon Johnson's Great Society, or like Perón's reforms in Argentina, I'm just like literally talking about like welfare being like a head off. Like it was out of trying to outflank the left and trying to, I guess it's not to outflank the left, but just to quell the masses. It's not actually. That's not to say that there aren't times where, there were more like pathetic, welfare reforms that might have not. They might have been about like certain individual. Politicians, idiosyncratic, but the largest reforms were usually to quell the masses, and that does matter. I think The other
here's the
thing
thing.
I
Okay,
do. There's a couple
here's the
other
thing that
things
I'm still interested in.
All right. Hang on. Let's take it back a second. So let's make sure that we got the gist of what you're writing, Ross. So, David is coming from that perspective, and I agree with that perspective, but this is what I surmised from your essay. First, Bell Hook argues for a redefining of words as revolutionary and emphasizes rhetoric and dialogue as crucial to the success of the feminist movement. And then she calls for the need to reclaim clear definitions of feminism and promote it through various forms of media. So what you're saying, and this is what I got, what you're saying in your essay is that you're criticizing her lack of discussion on the class character of media and the need for meaningful revolution.
Yeah.
Okay.
The other thing I talk about is like how reactionary religion is.
Okay, all right, hang on. So, hang on. All right, so how about this? Can you explain what a meaningful revolution to you entails? I think that would help.
Well, it would be like a series of general strikes, and probably there would be some kind of, it depends on how exactly it's carried out, but there would definitely be violence at some point, and it would be about taking away production from the owners and putting it in the hands of the worker through democratic apparatuses like communes and Soviets,
Okay, so you're basically like, okay, got to have general strike. There might be violence because the state's probably going to suppress that, but ultimately, in order, the third pillar of this is no, production has to go from private ownership to collective ownership in, like, I'm assuming all industries.
Okay, here's the thing. Okay, so Ross, this is something I want to ask you.
Mm-hmm.
In what way in what examples has violence been able to exchange hands between like private firm ownership and collective means of production ownership?
What do you mean?
Do you have an example of
violence? Like a lot of times, like the capitalists would say stealing their property is violence, but I would say both the Paris Commune, the Chinese Revolution, the Russian Revolution.
Wait, how far back are we going? Because also the language and what is successful when it comes to revolutionary politics has changed over the centuries. And I'm just interested in are there any modern examples of something like an armed uprising, usurping the incumbent government and exchanging power from traditional firms to worker-owned cooperatives?
I would say no, but I think that's a date fallacy. Oh, we're in the 21st century, everything's different. You know what I mean? That's not to say that
Well, would you say that most things are different at least? Because I'm sure
things are different, but that doesn't mean that there aren't. You have to explain what specifically is different that would make insurrection or general strikes irrelevant or not.
Well, hang on. I don't want to say that general. Yeah, I don't want to say general strikes are irrelevant either. We are pro general strike here.
Here's the thing. It's there's actually research, very abundant and very verifiable research that's been conducted about which forms of revolutionary political action create good and meaningful outcomes in the modern era. Ever since the advent of World War II, armed uprisings have a 0% success rate when the goal is to usurp the incumbent government, to break the back of the 1%, and to reinstate democracy in that sovereign territory for over a year. So the interesting thing to me is that I think that a lot of leftists fetishize and romanticize the Haitian Revolution or the French Revolution, but they try to superimpose those obsolete and outdated methods onto contemporaneous politics, even though those modern forms of those outdated forms of revolutionary politics literally have a 0% success rate.
Well, I think before we trot out statistics and really hardcore empiricism, we should try to
read my mouth,
understand the class character of these various departments. If if you get like some university like Iowa State, and there's a study that talks about the importance and health of pork or something like that. You should look into see like, oh, did Tyson's like use p hacking to get to certain conclusions? How do they define successful? Because like when chemistry departments like study combustion, they're not studying combustion in a vacuum. It's for the purposes of building bombs, or there's some kind of like, investment must become a return on that investment. It's not, so I don't think you can just like cite a specific thing. I would like to see that
okay,
that study,
all right,
and how they define.
Here's the thing. This isn't a specific thing. These are like general themes about like like what's actually like usable and actionable in like the modern era.
Okay,
it's like like what armed uprisings do not have a positive impact on influencing political discourse in the modern era. If you're trying to like usurp a dictator, if you're trying to like maintain democracy in a country, if you're trying to break the back of the 1%, it literally has a 0% like success rate.
Well, I don't
which is interesting, but like to me, it's like it's interesting because like there are a couple things that like I identified in like your essay that kind of seem like they're incompatible with like how things have progressed, and one of those things is like how like welfare like suppresses political action, and like apparently it doesn't, because a lot of like countries with like the most like robust welfare states have participated in the most like meaningful and robust forms of like political action. So I'm just I'm wondering why you still like believe that, even though there's kind of like counter evidence to that.
I think I think reform and revolution is a very good topic to cover. I just don't want that to eclipse the topic of bell hooks now.
I think we should talk about that at some point.
Here's what I want. So like here, let's like hash out like, because there are things that you actually agree with bell hooks on. Like you agree, there's harmful effects of bigotry. There's patriarchy's emphasis on women's looks.
One thing I forgot to put on there is like talking about attacking homophobia. In the feminist movement.
Mm-hmm. Oh. Well, hold on. Let me just say, like, I just want to cover this really. So, like, you agree with like the emphasis how patriarchy affects women and the just general harmful effects of bigotry, the need for women-only spaces, as well as the fact that you agree that you cannot be pro-life and a feminist at the same time.
Oh yeah, that's a big one.
And then the things that you generally disagree on is like her belief that love is a moving force in history, her embracing of religion, and acknowledging like the role of academia in shaping the political opinions. And then, you have like, what was it? And then your whole talk about, this is what David's been focused on is how welfare exists to prevent and suppress revolution. So those are the three main points that you disagree with bell hooks on.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess my question is like following that is, do you believe that most Marxist critiques of bell hooks, including yours, kind of center around her emphasis on race and gender and intersectionality, like in general, like it distracts people from a class analysis of society essential to being like a socialist in this regard, or like often it serves as a way to keep the working class divided over identity politics? Is that like your main concern of like that's why you're critiquing bell hooks right now?
I would say that she doesn't recognize the primary contradiction to be exploitation, and that exploitation creates race and sex, like our constructs of those. You know what I mean? Like the basis of race is in slavery, like our historical, and if we take away things like race, racism, sexism, credentialism, eventually you start realizing that the only reason that people are being paid differently is on the basis of exploitation. It makes exploitation a lot more obvious if you take away, the various types of discrimination and stuff like that.
Okay. But like here I just want to ask, like, so like I think this is important.
To say that we need to talk about like racism as a special problem.
Okay.
Same thing with sexism, but it's just that it's about understanding like how certain contradictions might create others. You know what I mean?
So I mean, let's
we have some studies about that. Okay, University of Cali, Berkeley, and University of Chicago. Applicants with black names were called back 10% fewer times across the board. Discrimination was more prevalent at decentralized companies where the hiring process is spread out without much HR oversight. This to me is like kind of like an example of intersectionality being like a little bit more empirically legitimate. So why is it that like, we can say that most of these things can be boiled down simply to like, class arguments, when racial arguments also help to explain like the disparity between class outcomes, like people being employed and things like, like salary and stuff like that.
I think you're misunderstanding what I'm saying. I agree with the like, I don't even think it's novel, the like notion of intersectionality, that there are like certain emergent properties where different, hierarchical, oppressive systems interlock. There's emergent properties there. I think the problem is realizing that a lot of these oppressive hierarchies actually come back to class. Like historically,
do you not also see how like this like specifically impacts race?
Like they kind of go hand in hand, is what he's trying to say, Ross.
There are numerous studies that have basically been undertaken, which say that like, okay, this is a different Harvard study from 2017, which found that when blacks and Asians whitened their resumes by using white or American sounding names, they got more callbacks for interviews.
No, I know.
25% of black candidates received callbacks for their whitened resumes, while only 10% received callbacks when they left ethnic details on their resume. This to me like says it's not just about class; it's about how you present yourself, like racially or ethnically.
Like slavery was a class category. Do you understand what I'm saying? So the history of race is deeply embedded in the material conditions and economic conditions of America, of the Americas.
Yeah, we hire or don't hire people on the basis of race now.
What? Yes, I understand that, but that's still
like a class conscious like take. But there's intersectionality there.
Can I just try and play? Hold on.
Novel.
Can I just?
It's not novel.
All right, hang on. Can I just?
Okay, but if
hold
it's
on.
not novel, then we
whoa.
Like,
can I just play a brokerage here and just say that I think the point that Ross is trying to make is that yes, there is racism and general bigotry. People are viewed on these things, but what we need to analyze is why they are analyzed on these things. Like, it is rooted in racism. Is that what I'm getting at, Ross?
Well, that racism is rooted in a class society, or
yeah. I mean, you can trait racism to in a lot of way, like the American slave trade, for instance, that was a byproduct of capitalism.
Or even how we use, like, a lot of times when people talk about like they'll use the term like black and poor almost synonymously. Same thing with like women and children. It's because that's like part of their historically what they've been forced to do as a job. You know what I mean? Okay,
that's okay.
Like, are we able to say like, okay, here's one thing that I hope that we can all agree on, which is like on a basis of race specifically, not going back 200 years or like 300 years, like slavery or anything like that. On a basis of race, people are more likely to be hired for those reasons on the basis of race. There's some intersectionality there.
Yeah, I mean, I also think it's important to talk about how like black people are seen as lumpen a lot, as like a criminal underclass, and they're used historically, even today, like today, yesterday, tomorrow, in the prison system. I think that's yes, and I'm not saying that there isn't an important
hiring practices
where there's like regular what is it called, bigoted ideation, where like people might assume, they might look at somebody who's black and assume that they're a thief or something like that. I'm not saying that isn't important or that there isn't an ideology around it. I'm just saying that like
when it comes to class conscious issues.
Wait, hang on. Let him finish. Let him finish. Just let him finish.
Today, yesterday, and the day before, the roots of these are economic. It's not just about bigoted ideation and like name preference and stuff like that. Those things are secondary.
Okay.
Not that they aren't important.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing is that actually like name ideation tends to be like the actual causative factor. Because, you know, there was one famous case that was conducted a little bit of time ago where somebody who was black submitted a resume to Target. And that resume was rejected, outright rejected. They whitewashed their resume. They changed their name. And they actually included fewer qualifications. And after that, they got the resume. Yeah. Like, no, like I'm sorry. Like, sometimes it's not just about class. It is also about race. And race has like a very like definitive and identifiable way that, okay. So what I'm just basically trying to get is that it's not just about class when it comes to things like hiring practices, when it comes to things that actually affect class. Race actually does interact with hiring practices.
Okay,
let's see actually intersectionality.
All right, hang on. Let me just say this. I think the dispute is what should we as socialists put more emphasis on? Is it the race first or the class first? Now, I think this is where, you know, Ross's main critique of bell hooks is coming from. It's just not Marxist enough in their eyes. But, like, I think we need to discern first, like, do we consider bell hooks a Marxist or a socialist?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't consider her a Marxist.
Okay, you wouldn't consider her a Marxist. You wouldn't consider her a socialist.
That wasn't actually like
socialist is a lot weaker term. Like, you know, you could call like Pol Pot a communist, but I wouldn't call him a Marxist. You know what I mean?
Okay, so
like, I'll call her a socialist. But,
well, that's the thing though, because she does not identify as a socialist.
Really, she does.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like you showed me that video of her like beating a landlord. I think that would be highly contradicting.
I'm surprised at how many there are people that say things that are quite contradictory.
It's just that she uses an analysis of capitalism that I think is very complementary to Marxism. So I think that's where the confusion is being made, and I think
no.
So I think the problem is like she's critiquing traditional Marxist thought for its failure to address gender and race in its analysis of class struggle. Do you kind of agree with that? That's like what feminism is for everybody.
Say that again.
So sorry. Like in feminism is for everybody. The works that, you know, your essay is about. You know, bell hooks is critiquing traditional Marxist thought for its failure to address gender and race in its analysis of class struggle.
That's one of her big things. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, that is one of the main pet peeves you got.
I wouldn't say in class struggle. It's specifically like how class and race, especially race, she gives like a chapter or two, how class and race hindered the development of the women's liberation movement.
Well, I know of the work too, and like it's just from her. That's why she kind of wrote it. It was because she thought that there wasn't enough. She thought that Marxism could do better if it addressed race and gender.
No, we were talking about feminism is for everyone. I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay. I just want to make sure we're on the same page here.
I've only read Feminism is for Everyone.
That's what I'm talking about.
Oh, well, I don't think she mentions Marxists ever. I do remember her saying specifically in like one of the chapters talking about how racism really hindered, you know, a lot of these, especially first wave, but also like she was talking about second wave. A lot of feminists were still racist, and it like made their analysis worse.
Well, yeah, I agree with that.
Agree with that. Yeah, that's another thing I should have put in there. I meant to,
but you know, I'm getting this right from I remember too. Like she does say a traditional Marxist thought had a lot of blind ends in terms of race and gender. Do you believe, I mean, let me just ask you, do you believe that Marxist theory or socialist policies have time in history reinforced patriarchal, if not racist, power dynamics?
I think there are specific movements, if that's what you're saying. Yeah.
Okay, but
I
like,
would
do you
say,
feel
like,
like Marxist theory in the past has kind of fallen short in addressing
Do you
racism and
think that
patriarchy?
Marxist theory? Let me simplify this. Do you think that Marxist theory was a product of its time, or was it clairvoyant and like it was able to anticipate like like social and political themes of the future?
Oh, that's a good question.
No, I do think that it was able to, like, it's still applicable today, and it has, has predictive power for the future.
Do you think that Marxist theory mostly addresses things on a class base, and by being a product of its time might exclude certain things that are relevant and very important, that are based on like a racial base or a gendered base?
Like traditional Marxism, not to say that Marxist thought can't.
Was Marxism so important, like clairvoyant, that it was like able to anticipate, like like the, I guess you could say, like how racial politics, like gender politics, have evolved in 200 years since.
Yeah,
then.
like Marx actually did consider this, so, instead of failing to consider this.
I mean, I think there were efforts to, like, if I want to talk about specifically sexism, for instance.
Okay.
There were efforts to, rectify that class divide, and the same thing with races and nationalities. They were very limited by their understanding in the 1800s. So, for instance, there was a law that Marx and Engels supported that made it so that not only children couldn't work, or like limited the ability for children to work, which we agree with, but also said like women couldn't work in certain conditions too, but in an unequal way to men, right? And we wouldn't agree with that. That was wrong. That was.
Do you think it applies in some way to like the disparity between like how like African Americans are hired compared to like how white people are hired?
Wait, say that again.
Oh, do you think that like might also apply to like the disparity rates between how African American people are hired and how like white people are hired when it comes to like employment?
They definitely understood that different peoples were like were actively discriminated against, and that actually was part
did Marx anticipate that like black people would be hired in like I guess you could say like some kind of like conceptually egalitarian society?
What do you mean? That like in a conceptually egalitarian society?
So can he did he anticipate that like black people and white people would cohabitate, basically like an employment ecosphere where like both can like submit their applications to like traditional firms, both can submit their applications to the Fortune 500, and on a basis of their race, certain demographics would be favored over others. Like, did he anticipate that necessarily, like that configuration?
I think it's pretty, like, I don't even think you have to have that much of an analysis to realize that. I think it's pretty self-evident. Like, even from the like.
Okay, so if it's self-evident, then we agree that they're like racial like explanations.
Yeah, but I don't think
certain people.
Race class. I think race as a category was created by class, and I think that's more important than like class by itself. Do you understand what I'm saying? Whereas I think, I guess what I would just say is that class is more holistic. Economics and class is more holistic when describing society, whereas your analysis tends to this like infinite idiosyncrasies of like a given like the bigotry of millions of people, and trying to understand individual psychology, and then you get this like sick twisted stuff where like you have like people spending like 6 or like 12 hours of their time in a given workshop, that they're forced to go to, where everybody's focuses on how to like not think to be racist, when that's not the basis of racism. And that's not to say that we don't need to have certain workshops, but this way that people are going about attacking racism like Robin DiAngelo and a lot of ID poll people, it's not looking at inheritance. It's not looking at the prison industrial complex, and a lot of those are the roots of racism. You know what I mean?
Well, here's the thing. This is not just like based on inheritance.
All right. Whoa, hang on.
Here's the thing: 25% of Black candidates received callbacks from their whitened resumes, while only 10% received callbacks when they left ethnic labels in their resume. That's a 15% disparity. So like this isn't based on inheritance. This isn't based on this is like literally
hold on.
This is like literally based on ethnicity or like a lack of ethnicity.
All right, Ross.
And this is empiricized. There's data that supports this. This is not nearly like a class reductionist argument.
All right, hang on. Ross, say what you wanted to say about that so everybody can hear you.
Mike.
Just trying to. I'm listening to the stream, and it's like you really can't hear what's going on when all of us are talking. So,
well, thanks for excluding me from that.
Well, I guess I would just
wait. Hold on. Did I fuck up? I'm sorry. No, I wanted you to get your thing off, and then I was like, okay, Ross, respond to that now before you're all fucking talking past each other.
I guess what I would say is that that's not just about how people think. There's a specific history to how people think that's based in exploitation and class relations. You know what I'm saying?
Race. You mean race. It's specifically about race. This isn't just about class. You could have people who are like...
I understand that. What I'm saying is you can't separate those.
Okay.
You can.
Here, how about that? Hold on.
There is a disparity between race...
Hold on.
Oh God, Mike, are you going to mediate this?
I don't know. I don't feel like two on one-ing. So you are like, you're on fire right now. I didn't want to detract you or anything. Let me just kind of refocus this for a second. But how about this? How about this for a question, Ross? Do you think that that race can intersect with class, and that these intersections create unique forms of oppression and marginalization to certain people?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's novel. That's not something.
Okay,
everybody agrees that there's emergent properties when two things overlap.
Okay, so then
is that based on class? Wait, no, I'm going to ask a question.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Is that based on class or is that based on race?
Well, wait, are you talking about the notion that two things...
No. Answer the question. Is that based on class or is that based on race?
Race was created by class and economic...
No, race is not... Okay.
Yes, that's true.
Here's the thing. When people say that Black applicants have a 15% lower chance of getting called back for an interview, this is based on ethnicity. Yes. Being African American is considered to be an ethnicity. That's not based on class. That's based on the fact that they have an ethnic grouping. Well, and is that based on class or race? Can you admit that ethnicism contributes to that, or are you literally going to deny empirical data about that?
No, I acknowledge that. But
okay, so it's not just class; it's race. Just say that.
What?
It's not just class; it's also race.
Yeah, I never said that race doesn't matter.
Okay, so race plays a consequential role in class, right? In economic class, in economic environments.
Here's a question: do you believe that two concepts over a longer amount of time could eventually just end up influencing and feeding back each other? Yes, maybe modern racism was developed by, our classist analysis of capitalism, but now because things have existed for so long, now race is now permeating back into that class analysis.
This was
I do think that I agree with that,
but that makes a uniqueness to race, though, right?
I try to understand that.
But that makes a uniqueness to race.
I've never seen. I have butts that are covered in grotesque amounts of pubic hair before. Yeah,
wait,
but please.
Wait, what? With pubic hair? What?
No. I'm saying that is the funniest butt I've ever heard somebody introduce in a sentence. But I've heard people refer to funnier butts in the past. But,
oh, Jesus.
I think an important component is seeing how a lot of Black people have been able to get more disposable income over time, and so capital, certain sectors of capital have, catered to that. That matters. I think that I think it's also important to recognize that one is more primary than the other. That like the profit motive is more causal than racism or race.
Okay.
That's not to say that racism isn't like I think racism is the greatest divider of the working class.
Okay, hold on, actually, because I was just going to ask, like, do you believe at the fault of, do you believe, class divide in this country is more faulted at intersectionality or traditional racism?
No, it's more, of course, more racism.
Oh, so,
okay.
But
here's another statistic for you guys. Okay,
yeah.
Black Americans are severely underrepresented in higher paying corporate jobs. White Americans outrank Hispanics in management. 43% of whites worked in management. Only 35% of employed blacks work in management. 25% of employed Hispanics. This is relative to like their population totals.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't know. How many percentages do we have to like provide in order to substantiate the fact that this is not just based on the class disparity?
I understand where you're coming from. Like disproportionately, Black people are less likely to get a job with equal qualifications. There's, many metrics that we're talking about.
I'm gonna actually correct that for a second. When a white person has,
hold on. Let David correct. I'm sorry, I wanted to make that correction.
When a white person has fewer qualifications, they're actually more likely to get a callback for an interview. It's not about equal qualification. Sometimes, like, a black person can have, like, more qualifications and be like, called back.
Yeah. No, I understand what you're saying. That doesn't mean though that white people benefit from racism, right?
It doesn't. So, like, how does that mean that white people don't benefit from racism, where they can be underqualified and be more likely? No, hold on. I'm going to finish this sentence.
Yeah. Let David finish first, then you can answer.
So here, how do white people not benefit from racism when they can be underqualified and be more likely to acquire a more prestigious job than a black person who is more qualified but fails to get called back for that?
Well, have you heard of a wage spiral?
A wage spiral? No, not terminologically.
So if like there's a certain group that is always paid less than another group, they have to compete with that group. Like if for instance, if women are always paid less than men, you have an underclass of workers that are always willing to do it for cheaper. And so then those people will...
You're literally arguing for exploitation.
No, I'm not arguing for exploitation. I'm saying this is part of exploitation.
That exploited populations should not have to be subjected to that. And some people that are ethnically, or that have like an ethnic predisposition are subjected.
I agree with you that bigotry is bad. I don't think that's very novel, though.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that like bigotry precludes certain outcomes in the workplace, and that it's not reductive to class. That there are race factors that determine whether or not somebody like reaches a certain position of status within a workplace.
I'm sorry. Repeat your statement.
Okay, there are certain conditions that basically predispose certain people to have higher positions in the workplace than other people. Literally all I'm saying. And some of those preconditions are predicated on race. Some of those preconditions are predicated on gender. This has been like empirically substantiated over and over again, redundantly, and to argue against like legitimacy. It's
more important that creates all of those categories is class. That's what my point.
No, race is the causative factor in all of this.
Understand like the history of race. Have you seen the documentary 13th?
I have not seen 13th. Have you read the studies about how like race impacts and influences people?
Everywhere by everything.
All right, whoa, hang on.
It's like not even novel.
Hang on, Ross.
It's just like repeating stuff that everybody knows.
I mean, no offense, you've read it.
You actually agree. So here's the thing: I can say something over and over again, and like you won't accept like the evidence of it, which is shocking to me.
Here,
what do you think I'm not accepting?
All right, hold on. Does race
play a causative factor? Does race play a causative factor and whether or not certain people can. Oh, hold on.
Let David finish, Ross, and you can respond.
Okay, we're gonna finish. I'm not finished, by the way. I'm more Danish than finished, according to anybody who's listening. Here's the thing, though: does race play a causative factor in whether or not certain people are allowed to inherit positions of employment that offer them higher wages? Does race play a causative factor? Answer me that right now. Yes or no? No. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Intersectionality achieved.
Okay.
That's literally all I was fucking asking for.
All right. How about?
Thank you, Ross. You finally fucking answered the question.
Here, let's. Ross, hold on, Ross.
Can you make sure
Ross, I know. Hang on. I'm gonna let you speak. Let me.
Condition.
Right,
For
Ross.
this inequality is class.
Ross.
Does that make sense?
Let me hold on.
And the basis of the formation of the identity are rooted in class, labor, and economics.
When people like discriminated against African Americans being able to like buy houses in certain like districts, or like women like being able to like vote, was that a class based discrimination, or was that like racially and on a basis of sex? What was that enforced that way?
No, that's not to say that these things aren't sexist or racist, but that when certain workers are prevented from voting, it's usually a method of like, okay, we have to give this populace the ability to vote because they have certain kinds of power in the labor movement or something like that. It's not like one thing I really want to put an emphasis on, though, is that
yes,
racism and sexism prevents actually slows down the entirety of society and makes everyone worse off. I think that's
true. I agree.
Well, hold on. Does acknowledging that stuff and validating it to people who have been victims of it also slow down progress?
Well, I do think it's important to clarify what you're saying, and also like if somebody's in the middle of talking about how they're like a victim of a clan, I'm not going to like bust in there and just immediately say, "Oh, this doesn't mean that white people benefit from this." That's not the appropriate time, right?
Well, this isn't like some anecdotal thing where I say like, "Oh, like I've been repressed by this thing. Feel badly for me." This is like data that's been accumulated by people who like survey this discrepancy like on a national basis. Yeah, this is not like some like anecdotal shit. This is like people who like have like basically controlled for a lot in order to like arrive at these conclusions, and they arrive at these conclusions incontrovertibly. So to say that this is all like reductive to class is anti-historical, it's anti-factual, it's illegitimate, it's insubstantive, and frankly, it's insipid.
I mean, I disagree, but I have a question. Do you think that racism is the greatest dividing factor of the working class?
Is the greatest dividing factor of the working class?
Maybe I didn't word that.
I would say,
but I'm saying.
Do you want us both to answer, Ross, or just David?
What?
Do you want to?
Sure. Why don't you both answer? But one right after the other.
I'll say this: I really hate putting a single emphasis on the multiple things that I do believe divide the working class. Race is one of them, but it's also gender, it's sexual orientation. I think that, I'm coming from an all-encompassing perspective where it's like we either all benefit or none of us benefit. So, and that's why, personally for me, I stress an intersectionalist movement.
You're here.
But the point, but I just wanted to clarify this, and maybe this will help, parse out some details in case we're not continually firing past each other. I think that the emphasis here is like recognizing and validating race and race-based oppression, but not just stopping there, but then continuing to further demonstrate from a Marxist perspective that this is all fueled by class struggle as well. But that doesn't mean that like the racist and sexist stuff doesn't matter or isn't real. Like it's very real, and you have to reach people where they're at first. Like
Here's the thing.
Go on,
anybody who was like alive like 200 years ago and like didn't like 100% like anticipate this, I don't hold them against it. The people who like I hold this kind of thing against, this kind of thing with, is that people have been like alive in the modern era and they're not able to like update their perception of reality with new realities that have presented themselves since Marx wrote his shit. Yeah, like it's like we can't expect like, you know, Marx or Jefferson or anybody like Hegel or anybody to like have like clairvoyant access to the future and how like we should solve every conceivable problem.
No offense, I don't want to hear Thomas Jefferson's views on race, considering he raped his slaves. So
no, that actually like proves my point though.
Yes,
like,
I know.
We're relying like these old fossils to provide the blueprint for how to approach modern problems when it comes to like, you know, socioeconomic disparities. And expect them to have like the solutions to those problems. We can't. That includes Marx. That includes Mao. It's like we have to be able to like, you know, formulate solutions based on what's happening now. We can't expect like these old like, you know, like petrified like pontificators.
Well, just calling them old over and over again doesn't really like change, like add to your argument.
What do you mean?
What was that?
Calling them old over and over again has no bearing on the argument.
Okay, but if I were to say that they weren't old, that would also be wrong.
Not so, like, of course I'm
going to say that they're old because they're also like obsolete and outdated. Because like, you know, it's like when it comes to like how we address things in the current contemporaneous situation, of course you have to adjust to like how like new political realities present themselves. And as new political realities present themselves, you have to like adjust for like new solutions. You can't like superimpose like every political solution from like the 1700s, the 1800s, the 1900s to like, you know, like the modern political era and have like expected to go well. You can't fucking do that. And anybody who does that is like literally just like masturbating like they're like obsolete, irrelevant, like conception of like of theory.
I think there's a misunderstanding here. You know,
I hope so.
That you're like propagating. Marxists don't just dogmatically follow Marx. 1, 2, it's not like everybody would. If you had a class analysis, you'd understand how, you know, various bigotries prevent like, you know, social change for for betterment of the worker. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. But
hold on. I wanted to go back to the race.
Let me hold on.
The greatest dividing factor of the working class.
Let me just say that
like,
because
just from a physical perspective, like
physical. What does that mean?
Let me finish. If you don't let me finish, it might sound absurd to you. That there's actual like segregation that happens in our communities where like people are actually kept away from each other. So it's not just like, I mean, there are many metrics that we can talk about. How does it divide the working class? But I think like segregation, and this is a relevant problem today, is just how alienated people of different races are from one another. And racism, you know, is an important factor in that.
All I need to hear from you, literally all I need to hear from you is that like race is a causative factor in people being excluded. Hold on, no, wait.
Just let Ross finish. I'm sorry, let Dave finish. Sorry.
Yes. Okay.
All I need to hear from you is that race is a causative factor in economic status. Can you like agree to that?
In economic status.
Wait, so yes, you agree? I didn't hear that. I'm sorry.
No, I think that's a very important thing. Is that like part of racism is poverty and how it's divvied out. You know?
So all right, that's good. I'm glad we agree on that. It's just okay. So here's the problem that I have with the essay is that you criticize Bell Hooks for this when even though we've established she's not really a socialist, not let alone even a Marxist for that matter. So I feel like these criticisms, while, you know, I think could be seen from a Marxist lens, I seem a bit redundant when you're attacking someone like Bell Hooks. But I guess, okay, here's a good question. So, like, can someone derive meaning and purpose from specific beliefs or passages of others without fully agreeing or even on even the most basic fundamental axioms?
Yes, but I don't think that's like, there are sometimes where you might have one statement or axiom that is like very encompassing, and so it's not just like saying, oh, I can take like some from one ideology versus another, you know.
Well, hang on, because do you wait, so is that in that case, do you not think anything Bell Hooks has said could not have any meaning tangible meaning to anybody, even from like a socialist perspective, a Marxist perspective.
I never.
Okay.
I think it can definitely have meaning, from people that are communists.
So so as long as they're official communists, like, okay, that's fine. But if they're not, no, not really.
No, well, I guess what I would say is I don't think there's much of what she says is novel.
Okay, wait.
There's something that somebody else didn't say. No,
here's a quote. Hold on. I'm gonna give you some quotes.
I think it's also more about whether she's where is she wrong.
Okay, here.
Talk about where she's right.
All right, cool. Let's explore that. So here's a quote. I want to know if you agree with this quote. Shaming is one of the deepest tools of imperialist, white supremacist, capitalist patriarchy because shame produces trauma, and trauma often produces paralysis. Do you agree with that quote? Do you find does something resonate with you with that quote?
I think there is a place. Did she say shaming?
Shaming is one of the deepest tools of imperialist, white supremacist, capitalist patriarchy because shame produces trauma, and trauma often produces paralysis.
I think the problem with that is it's very vague. You know what I mean? I feel like you could make an argument that shame in the right context could also be used to attack imperialism.
Okay, all right. So there's nuance in that. Okay, that's fine. There's nuance.
But I do think that
no, I get it. I
avoid communicate
I get it. It's too vague. Okay, I actually agree with you. So how about this one? This one I have personally found meaning in. So the first act of violence that patriarchy demands males is not violence towards women. Instead, patriarchy demands that all males engage in acts of physical self-mutilation. They kill off the emotional parts of themselves. If an individual is not successful in emotionally crippling himself, he can count on patriarchal men to enact rituals of power that will assault his self-esteem.
Fucking based.
I think there's some merit to that.
There is some merit to that. Okay. Yeah, never mind the fact that if you didn't know that this was bell hooks I was reading, I was like, if I'm going to give you this quote, like, do you think a socialist or a non-socialist said this?
Well, I said in my thing that I feel like she could have. There were certain things that I agreed with.
No, you're right. I think we did cover that.
I agree with her that patriarchy, hurts men,
So you agree with the question?
I think she doesn't talk about from an economic perspective.
Well, hold on. She's not a Marxist. She's not a socialist. So why are you disappointed by that?
No, she does say that she's a socialist.
No, she doesn't. She never says she's a socialist at all. I could be wrong. I don't want to be too emphatic about that, but I'm pretty sure I looked up trying to find out where she stands. She's shit-lipped at best. I'll throw you a bone at this, Ross. But that doesn't mean that you can't discern powerful passages and how they can have a tangible meaning to you, even though you may not agree with everything that she says. It's the same reason that the Chinese Communist Party, still reveres Sun Yat-sen as a national founder, even though Sun Yat-sen was not a communist.
Well, no, but they were wrong about that. They shouldn't.
Okay, all right. I don't want to open a can of worms with that one with you. Okay, I understand. We're going to disagree on that. Okay, but. The point I'm trying to make is, so you agree then, because this coincides with your essays that
she was a socialist feminist, or that was a driving force in her ideology.
Well, I don't think it's a driving force in her ideology as a socialist. And she is using intersectionality in a more liberal way. That I can agree with you on that's bad. But I also I'm not expecting her to be a socialist. I'm not holding my breath for that. But that doesn't mean I can take works from her and use it in a socialist manner.
Hey, Mike. Hey, really quick.
Hold on. Whoa.
Wait, Mike,
is that Dave Rubin?
Yeah. Hey, it's me. I'm Dave Rubin. I'm in recovery mode right now. But hey, guy, is she kind of cohesive with your very specific interpretation of socialism or not, man? Because I feel like you might be defending somebody who might not be socialist, man, and that's really bad, man. How can somebody who's not a socialist say 2 + 2 is 4, and you agree with that, man?
Ross, hold on. I would just want to say, Ross showed me a video about her getting mad that people were, being mean to her as a landlord, And the thing I should take from that is, okay, no, people should be mean to you for being a landlord. They just shouldn't be misogynistic from it. That's how. That's
Here's the thing, Mike. Here's the thing you have to understand. Because he was the landlord one time, anything she has to say about anything at all is like utterly disprovable and falsifiable, man. Like if she says that like workers should own the means of production, that she was a landlord, she's not a socialist, man.
I think it's important to recognize that there are a lot of people who get money for writing things, right?
Okay, sure. But like, let's hold on. Let's
authors, we acknowledge there are authors, man.
Let's hold on. Let's just look at this right then and there, because let's suppose Bell Hooks was paid to say that last passage that I said about patriarchy. Does that make that statement any less true?
Yeah, because I'm Dave Rubin, man.
Oh my God, David.
No, here's the actual thing. No, fuck no. It doesn't matter how somebody identifies. If somebody says a true statement, it doesn't matter like how they politically identify. It's fucking true or not.
Yeah, I would say that what you said is correct, but I think that being part of a certain class does make your tend to cause you to have a specific kind of analysis.
So let's agree on this, that we can discern stuff from people like Bell Hooks, but we should also definitely be more class conscious so we don't blindly accept everything.
Unless she says, well, here, I'm Jordan Peterson, okay?
Oh my God, Jordan Peterson, your voice is way too high for Jordan Peterson.
Okay, I can't do that any differently now. But it's unless we have, no matter what I say is socialism, okay?
What is your
socialism is when people have clean hair.
Hold on.
Clean hair, then you're a
What was your
socialist.
question, Mike?
My question? I didn't have a question. What I just asked. I was just gonna ask, okay, well, it wasn't really a question. It was more or less a statement. I think that people should be able to derive meaning from reading the works of others, but I think as you grow as a Marxist, you should develop definitely a more class conscious awareness to who you're reading about and whether or not that the passage.
No, you have to commit yourself fully to one public intellectual, and you can't derive meaning and factual information.
So let me just
understand why you're doing this.
Let me just
because I want you to clean your room.
Oh my God, David! David, don't attack me, David. My room's a mess. So fuck.
Okay, but you know what? I've had a political revelation. You can be right about something and not clean your room.
That's
I think
true.
we should talk about empiricism, because I think David doesn't understand how academia can be weaponized and consistently produce misinformation in very specific ways.
So who do you like?
Hold on, let Ross. Hold on. Let Ross.
Some kind of can add to human can. I'm sorry, my head's not all the way there, but whether violence can build a movement to help liberate humanity. That was to me the idea that you'd say, oh, there's never been in the last 50 years that all of the movements that have existed have always been pacifistic to create human liberation. That's not understanding causation or correlation at all. It's not understanding how certain movements can coincide. One can be violent, one can be pacifistic. But if you're just going to do voices this entire time, I don't think that's entirely or meaningfully insightful or adding anything to the conversation.
Here's the thing. I'm gonna use my normal voice just because apparently it means that everything I say is facetious or something. So there is actually somebody who's actually accumulated the data about successful revolutionary movements and unsuccessful revolutionary movements.
Or
here's the thing, Ross.
Hold on, let David say this point. So
gonna say something, man, and I might even say it in the Dave Rubin voice.
Please, for the love of God, don't. Just okay.
So we're gonna say it in the David Donovan voice.
Yes, I like the David Donovan voice better. It's much more sexier. Okay. Please.
It's very sonorous. It's very
serenade me, daddy. Okay, just okay there.
Got it. Thank you, Mike. You flattered me than a
How do you
panic.
define successful? That's an important question.
Here's successful. Okay.
Well, causation, correlation. Like when we talk about these movements, because you're saying, violence doesn't.
Here's the thing, Ross. I'm going to answer one of your questions right away. This does not include bowel movements. And I know that was like one of like your one of your most concerned points of opposition about this. No, this does not concern bowel movements. But one thing that this does concern is the sex test. No, I'm just kidding. I'm literally having fun with you right now because I think that's literally the most I can do with it. Okay, I'm gonna ask you a question.
Hold on.
It's a thing. That is a thing, So you don't have to make fun of. Okay, continue.
No, we will continue. Okay, so when it comes to 323 revolutionary movements that have been analyzed by people who have better information about this than you or I do, 0% of armed uprisings have been successful since World War II. That is because since World War II, governments, nations have had a monopoly of force. Naval and air supremacy is a thing since World War II. Because of that, revolutionary movements that basically relied upon firearms or the Second Amendment to facilitate their facilitate change have failed demonstrably. This can be most one of the earliest indicators of this was this El Salvadorian revolutionary movements in the 1940s. They were not able to usurp the incumbent government. They were not able to break the back of the 1%. They were not able to maintain democracy in the face of their authoritarianism. So when it comes to those things,
hold on, let me finish.
No, I'm not done. I'm still being Dave Rubin, man. Oh, God, so when it comes to those preconditions, armed uprisings have a negative factor or a negative predilection towards accomplishing their goals, as opposed to other forms of revolutionary politics that have a positive correlation with facilitating their goals, like general strikes, non-cooperation methods, that we saw in Latvia or South Korea, all that kind of stuff. I can go into detail with that about that with you.
Okay,
which country do you want to look at and how do you want to ascertain this? Because
the first thing that we should talk about is riots, because I would say that those are pretty violent. And I think that the riots in the 60s really was actually helped the ruling class to accept some of the more pacifistic and timid reforms that the
So which president did that usurp?
What do you mean?
That's reformist in my.
Are you saying I don't understand.
Hold on. Let me take this back to your essay, Ross, for example, because you say one of the pillars is not just what was it general strikes and but it was also taking away production from the owners. Does that mean totally revamping the government in order to do that?
That did not happen.
But no, I just want Ross to answer. Does that in your takeaway to that? So taking away production from the owners, does that mean you're using the government to do that, and that means taking control of the government?
No, I would say that you have to destroy the current state. And in the process, you're going to figure.
Ross.
Let me finish.
Hold on.
And in that process, you will create your own state, because part of what the state is an instrument of class domination.
Okay. But governments.
Describe it. Okay, Ross. Describe the Chilean Revolution to me in the 1970s.
That was completely reformist, and it was not a revolution.
Reformist, but even though here's the thing. Even though they were able to
hold on. Let Dave talk.
Even though they were able to usurp their head of state and not merely do something that was reformist, the gay riots of the 1950s, 60s, they were able to accomplish more. You're saying that because they were able to accomplish more, that's merely reformist, when the examples that you're willing to pull from accomplished far less in comparison? Please fucking explain this to me, Ross. I would love to hear your
perspective. Separate what Allende did from the horror that came after. Part of his failure and this is his impotence, was his inability to protect the revolution, and ultimately it led to fascism, and that's really sad. And you can talk endlessly about the how improved the literacy rates and more children got milked, and that was great. But it led to his impotence, his to actually more human enslavement. You know what I mean?
But what did armed uprising accomplish in comparison?
Ultimately, though, why it was good that he tried that. That IND.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
In the future, we can teach people that reformism doesn't work.
Wait, hold on. Here's your thing, though. It's like, okay, when it comes to like armed uprisings or whatever, like how many incumbent governments did that usurp in Chile?
What do you? I don't. Understand.
He's asking how many are. Go on.
How did the armed militia accomplish as much as the unarmed militia in Chile in the 1970s?
No, I think. Okay,
they did not.
Sure. Because you're
they
using.
Did not. Okay, there was an armed assassination attempt against Pinochet in the 70s.
Yeah.
That went really badly, unsurprisingly. Wait. You're gonna wait until I finish this.
Sure.
So that went really badly, as is anticipated since the 1940s, since the advent of naval supremacy and air force supremacy in the 1940s. It went spectacularly abysmally.
All of these are not actually.
Hold on, just let him.
Meaningful sense.
Ross gets to pontificate more. Here's the thing: is that the greatest chance that Chile had of usurping their dictator and of installing something that was favorable to the general population was not actionable by means of harnessing your muskets against the government. It was a means of general strikes. It was a means of protracted action. And even if that didn't result in the best outcome, it gave them the best chance for the best outcome, when an armed uprising did not give them the best chance for outcome. In the same way that the 1980s and the 1990s South Korean revolutionaries were able to usurp their dictator, not by taking arms against them, but by gradually consolidating support for their movement, for their ideology. There's a 0% success rate for what you're talking about. You're trying to superimpose Haitian and
let Ross respond.
Clarify is I'm not just talking about art, and I don't want to do violence. Obviously, you know what I mean. I think
some of these
contradictions will happen. This isn't a question of if. There's a certain kinds of chaos that will be brought about, the crises within capitalism, whether we're talking about climate change, economic turmoil that's created through bubbles, things like the bullwhip effect, crises of overproduction, etc., or crises of imperialism that cause violence. Also, I think.
So give me an example of this violence that has actually created good outcomes for the government.
Allende created some meaningful success when that led to Pinochet. There's a lot of just.
No, I'm talking about what happened after Pinochet.
Hold on.
A liberal government in South Korea is a meaningful.
No, you're misrepresenting my timeline, sir. I don't think you have your history straight.
Can I just say that let me just say this, that really.
I want to hear what the poor point that David.
This is after. Okay. This is about the usurpation of Pinochet and the aftermath of Pinochet.
Okay, so
talking about what happened before him.
Oh, I thought you were
I'm also talking about what happened in 2017 with President Park. What happened before and after. Literally, my method of revolutionary politics has a 52% success rate. Armed uprisings, violence has a 0%.
I don't think you understand what.
All right. Well, hold on. Let's.
Or what actually?
No, I do. I've actually read the fucking data.
Liberation.
Okay. How about
all of this is built on incredible amounts of exploitation in the global South?
Okay, hang on.
That's not what I'm talking about.
All right.
Revolutionary politics.
Okay. All right. Ross, I'm gonna hit the brakes. Ross. Here. Hold up.
he just doesn't know anything.
All right, hang on.
I know more than you do because I know like what's actually like resulting in good outcomes.
Daddy,
and, like, you're just like literally pontificating about things that like happened like 200 years ago or 100 years ago.
Daddy, chill.
Like certain things
Daddy,
today,
chill.
Climate change
Daddy,
will actually lead to like
Daddy,
a lot
chill.
of
Daddy Ross,
problems
chill.
For workers, and that will lead them to revolt.
Daddy
It's
Ross,
not
chill.
like,
Well, then why is it that welfare states have like actually facilitated the most amount of like political action?
That's something that you're trying to prove. That's not something that you have.
That's something I've demonstrated.
There's a lot of evidence that actually shows
has like a very robust.
Was designed
this is something like I've demonstrated. This is like whether it comes to France or it comes to South Korea and like the modern era.
I don't think anybody could hear this.
These are like populations that have like very high like unionization rates. These are populations that have very high like social program rates. These are populations that have very like welfare program rates. These populations have actually like demonstrated like the highest rates of like like political action and like political participation compared to other like states that you might compare from like the 1790s or something, from like a Haitian revolution. I don't have to prove my point. I've already like said this like a million fucking times. You have to prove your point. And like what I'm learning from you is like you only get to like prove your point from like a dumb like obsolete Maoist perspective.
Can I
like, you don't actually prove yourself from like an empiricized like substantiated perspective in the way that like yeah, go ahead.
All right, how about this? I'm gonna be the enlightened centrist here and just because let me just say,
like his brain has been rotted by empiricism. Sorry, here.
First of all, empiricism is not all wrong, and let's just
your brain has been rotted by like misinformation. Like you're saying that like my brain has been rotted by like information, and yours has been rotted by misinformation. Thank you. You prove your like inability to like actually grasp concepts and percentages. When it comes to like revolutionary politics, you like demonstrated your inability to like grasp like percentages and like empiricism. I'm sorry, if you're saying that like my brain has been rotted by empiricism, you're saying that like my brain has been rotted by things that like are actually substantiated and legitimized.
Ross, I gotta agree. Ross, I gotta agree. Hold on, Ross. I have to agree with David here. Like, you can't just. It seems a little too sophistic to like just reject empiricism altogether. Like,
well, no, he confuses like. He will take some data
facts with like feelings. I'm sorry that you fall into like the imperial like loophole of like being like I'm substantiated with your shit. I'm very sorry.
This is the same person that like if nutritionists that work for Tyson would say something, he'd just be like, well, it's empirical.
Well, hang on, because it doesn't always act that way. There have been, fossil fuel companies have had to suppress their own findings, empirical findings about how their industries affect climate change. So it's not always empiricism like favors just, the rich and powerful in this case. Like sometimes facts are just facts.
I'm literally referencing revolutionary movements that have basically like been able to like usurp their special interests. But like the revolutionary movements that have been able to like usurp their special interests are the movements that like don't behave the way Ross wants them to behave. And I'm sorry, Ross, that like you're a fossil and you're petrified and you're Cretaceous and Triassic. But like if we actually want to facilitate socialist changes in this country or like globally or whatever, we have to ignore Ross and we have to like actually look at things that actually work in like the real world. So feel free to like continue, Ross.
I think the first thing that's the most important thing is to organize workers, especially in key industries like transportation, food workers.
Okay, let's all get to something that we agree on.
There's reason to believe that there will be violence in the future with regards to fighting for human liberation. I don't think that's silly. I don't think that these reformist movements, these various just like peaceful protests and like passing legislation have meaningfully led to more human liberation. I think that in general, a lot of times misery is shifted around. Capitalists don't take a cut to their pay sitting down. If the workers in the first world get a pay increase, a lot of times it's moved down. There's somebody else in another place that's getting a pay cut. You know what I mean? Our society is getting closer and closer to ecological destruction. I don't think that's meaningfully more free. You know what I mean?
Okay. All right. Here, I think we've kind of run our course on this a bit. It is getting like, let me just some final statements. Ross, I'm gonna let you say some stuff. I'll just say, like, from your essay, yeah, I can agree from like a Marxist analysis that bell hooks probably falls short, but I've also, concluded that bell hooks is neither a socialist or really a Marxist. But that doesn't mean that you can't take things that she has said and use them practically in your life, especially as like a leftist. So that's my take. David, if you want to say something, and then we'll let Ross have the final word, and he can go about his dutiful way.
Yeah, he can go to like more Marxist book club. Okay, so like here's the thing: general strikes, absolutely a good thing. When it comes to like whether like the South Africans were able to like utilize general strikes against their oppressors, absolutely like necessary. We have very low unionization rates in the United States, so that's not necessarily as like applicable or actionable here. But of course, you need to make your oppressors uncomfortable. I guess like what is important is the methodology in which you make those oppressors uncomfortable. When it comes to armed uprisings and stuff like that, I hear a lot of leftists pontificate and like romanticize the revolutionary politics of the Haitians in the late 1700s, or like the French revolutionaries in the 1700s. Those things literally have a 0% success rate in the modern era. You can look those things up. You should look at like Erica Chenoweth's research about like which basically identifies and it determines which revolutionary political movements have been successful, which ones have been unsuccessful. People are going to make emotional appeals to like what like works in the modern era. I would implore everybody to like actually look at like what actually works and like apply that to like the modern era, which is not armed uprisings against your government. That tends to be suppressed and that tends to be like quelled pretty decisively since the 1940s, when things like a monopoly of power within their government and things like air supremacy and things like naval supremacy became predominant in like the theater of war, or like in the theater of like like revolutionary suppression.
Is that your general opinion of his essay on bell hooks? Don't rebel.
Of bell hooks?
Yeah.
Well, when it comes to bell hooks, okay, here's another thing. Okay, we can't separate like racial issues from class issues. And until somebody is able to capitulate or like basically submit that race determines economic status, then I think anybody who comments about race or economics doesn't have the necessary information. So,
okay, Ross, you can get the final word on this. Okay, it's your essay, it's your baby.
Well, I would say that I think a lot of academics are sophists, and they actively just try to produce things, write things just to get published. They're more concerned with that. They're not always conscious of this, but I think that's an important factor when we read various academics. I think that it's important to realize that whether violence happens is not like about an ought, it's more of an is. And there are specific like factors that create that cause people to revolt. It's not something that's about like idealized leftists saying, oh, this should happen. No, I think that we need to actively get ourselves to a place where we can have general strikes. That's something that we I'm calling for people to actively organize in their workplace. Join an organization like the Progressive Labor Party that's actively doing that. Like we have like 300 or 400 members specifically in Metro. What else I would like to say? I don't think that like bell hooks is evil or anything. I just think that her analysis is lacking on certain dimensions. And I think that it's more important to read Marxists. Whether we're talking about, Parenti or Richard Wolff or, Rodney Green or, Angela Davis,
Mm-hmm.
Assata Shakur, Rosa Luxemburg, Lenin. Their analysis is superior because it gets at bread and butter issues. because that's whether people live or die. You know what I mean? And that, really, like, if you look at things close enough, a lot of stuff comes back to investment must become a return on that investment, and that's mixed in with the plight of many different kinds of bigotries, and causes those bigotries. Like, when we talk about racism and sexism, they have a root in economic exploitation. People aren't, it's not just about how people think. There are specific structures that are all pervasive throughout society. That does not mean that we shouldn't go out of our way to think about how, people might have racist or sexist ideation and try to combat that. That is important. But ultimately, we need to take down the prison industrial complex and get rid of inheritance to really truly, eradicate racism, which I do think is possible. Maybe not in our lifetime, but we should constantly be working to get rid of that.
Okay. Sorry.
I do think it's important to say that different bigotries, when combined, do create emergent properties that often make it worse than just one bigotry by itself. I think we need to actively work towards revolution, because human extinction, or just the mass death is on the line, within our lifetimes. There's a lot of a question about the Southeast being underwater, whether we're talking about New Orleans or Miami, and I could go on, but I don't want to.
How about this, to maybe something we can all agree on here? Whatever Bell Hooks' shortcomings are, maybe we can all agree that she might serve a purpose of a pipeline that leads to those other writers that you're talking about.
I don't think of ideology as a platformer, but I think that's a thing. I mean, there are a lot of people who have different journeys, right?
Terrific. We'll take it. All right, Ross. I really want to thank you for coming on.
David, I'm sorry for getting mad at you. I'm not. I know.
No, I don't mind. You're willing and able to have any standpoint you want. But
and to be fair, a lot of the things you're saying were valid and good points. I don't think you're holistically wrong or anything. I mean, I do think you're holistically wrong, but I don't think you're a bad person. I don't think you're stupid.
Well, here's the thing. I think you're empirically wrong, but it's also we both want revolutionary political action, and we both have different methods for actualizing that. I have no sympathy for neoliberalism, or even I think social democracy is maybe meaningful step towards the right direction, but anything short of workers owning the means of production, yeah, I agree. But this is about getting there. That I think we have a difference.
Well, I'm sorry that it got hostile at some points. I mean, I know it's easy to always just get so angry. I do that. I'll admit that.
Same. No, I admit that too. And I try to base my opinions on empirical precedent. But I know that other people base their opinions on fantasy and J.R.R. Tolkien. So
I love you guys too.
I think this is the last thing I'm gonna say. I agree that it's important to get back to sensuous data. A active to be rigorous. I think it's important to be rigorous. I think it's important to be sensuous. I think it's important to have things that are peer reviewed, to use the scientific method. I agree with that. I'm just saying that I think there is a problem where academia will produce misinformation in very specific ways, where they'll try to say something is and is when it's actually an ought, or they might use p hacking for specific donors or something like that. I mean, there's a lot of time. But
did you know the primary source of information is a non-binary anti-capitalist?
What?
What's up? What are you talking?
My primary source of information when it comes to revolutionary politics is a non-binary anti-capitalist. From what I could tell.
I mean, I'm non-binary too. I think.
So I think as a non-binary person, I would be interested in like this person's assessments of like revolutionary politics. And I'm sorry, like you're right. Like I probably was like more antagonistic in this conversation than I should have been, or like normally am. But
I'm glad you
I
guys
think
are
there are
making
some things that are empirically substantiated, and those things should be defended.
Yeah, I guess I would be worried about like how you would like talk to a fascist, because they would bring up a lot of empirical facts that like make certain people look bad.
Well, no,
And, like,
they don't have stats, because every time they you bring up stats, they're like, yeah, Jew stats, man.
Here's my thing. Oh, here's my experience with dealing with people who are libertarians or like fascists. I used to have a Facebook page that was like solely like a watering hole where everybody can contribute their like opinions and stuff like that. I pretty much converted everybody to social democracy, at least. We're like the very ardent and evangelized capitalists were like, hey, places like Norway and like, you know, like all those Scandinavian countries, they have like greater market freedoms, but they also have guaranteed healthcare. They also have guaranteed like public education. They also have like guaranteed maternal leave, paternal leave, higher GDP rates. Hey, my strain of capitalism actually superimposes itself better on these welfare states. So like, I don't know. Like when I feel as though like, you know, like empiricism is very persuasive. And
I think it's more about a question of the institution that carries it out. I mean, whether we're talking to me or like a fascist or anybody, like a lot of times people, if they're going to disagree with that, they're going to talk about like, well, who butters their bread and stuff like that.
Yeah, like it could be like the Harvard study, or it could be like, you know, like the South Korean board of governance for like how they like adjudicate and like administrate their like welfare distribution and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, it's a question though of also like what is successful. You know what I mean? Or what do we want? You know what I mean?
I feel like you ever been in like a party and like everybody like, okay, I'm gonna go in, and then you start talking some more as everybody's getting up and having another conversation, and then you have a conversation to the door, and then you say goodbye, but then you start talking more, so like, oh, we'll just walk to them to their car. Like, are we at the car yet?
Well, we can end it here.
Yeah,
I feel like Mike Greeny like has to go because he needs to wake up sometime tomorrow. That's the difference between like Mike Greeny and I. Like, I don't have to wake up tomorrow until like 6 in the afternoon.
I want to go talk to my girlfriend, and I want to wrap things up with David before we end it. So, Ross, thank you. I really want to see you again. Make another essay.
Dare to win, everyone.
Ross, hey, really quickly, I know we disagreed, but I value you and I love you as a person. And it was awesome.
I really appreciate you too. And dare to struggle, dare to win.
Yeah, we got it, buddy. We're going to win this.
Yeah, hopefully.
Take care, Ross. Hope to hear from you soon.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
You're supposed to leave now.
I turn this on.
I'm going to put you over here. Okay. Well, Dave.
Yo.
Got a little bit of Dave Rubin and wow, drawing a blank for a second. Oh, Jordan Peterson out of you for a little bit.
Oh, sure. Well, you know, the only way anybody can really, you know, actualize their worldviews is if they clean their room first. You clean your room.
You get so for Jordan Peterson's voice, you have to emphasize a bit of the sort of discrepancy here in the voice. Part of what neo-Marxism, I don't even know if I'm doing any better, but basically you kind of have to sound like Kermit the Frog, but not actually be Kermit the Frog.
Yeah. Like, you have to, like, I don't know.
Anyway, so, I mean, with final thoughts, I'll let you kind of start this, because well, let me just say, I think that you definitely, I thought I was going to be a little assertive in my questioning, but I was like, damn, you were coming out full gravy train here with your posturing. So, I mean, I don't know what else there's there to be said about this. Like, yes, I'm sorry, like, I've read bell hooks, and like I have learned stuff, and I have used it in trying to win people over, especially like people of different races, ethnicities, genders, as well as combating the people who oppress them. I just don't think that she needs to be like a total absolute Marxist. I think what I have surmised from this is, I think some people serve as good stepping stones, and they could lead you into a more nuanced and dynamic direction, but you got to start somewhere first. You have to like meet people where they're at. So like for me, when I'm addressing like how, oh, David left. Okay, it's just me. David just did not want to hear what I wanted to say. And I bored him. I don't know if it was just, oh boy. Oh, it's just me now. Now I feel really alone. Oh, geez. Well, David, are you coming back? Can you still hear me? David, did your computer die? If your computer died, then, oh, wait, where did you go? I'm still here. Are you fucking with me? Are you just like trolling me right now? Like, wait, did I lose internet? No, I'm still fucking live. Okay, well, it's just me. Yeah. So, hi everybody. I don't know if Dave's coming back. If I should add him. I don't. Well, yep. Do. Anyway, yeah. So yeah. Okay. Let me just say this. I think that people should read bell hooks. Whether or not you feel like she is going far enough in addressing a material analysis of what is, going on in terms of racism and sexism, I'll leave that to your discretion, but you really should not come to the conclusion that she has meaningful, tangible statements and analysis of racism and sexism. Whether or not we need to go another step forward and make people understand how it's tied to class struggle, well, yeah. I don't know if I need to end this or not. I guess David, if you can hear this, bark twice if you're in Milwaukee. I know you're not in Milwaukee, you're on the West Coast, but okay. You know what sucks is I also have to pee. I don't know. Yeah. Okay. I guess I'm just gonna end it. We'll never hear David's take on this. Never again. David, you had your chance, but you decided to split early. You decided to bail on me. You bailed on me. I'm by myself. I'm in the trenches by myself, taking the grenades. You just decided to fuck off. And you know what? I was gonna say you did a good job tonight, but now I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure that I'm in a good. I can't say that with good confidence now after you throwing me under the bus like this. Just kind of me just rambling on, hoping you respond to my text, and you're gonna tell me like, oh no, I had an internet problem or something. I need to get in, or it's just like a Discord error. Like I'm just kind of just rambling because I see you typing now in the chat. I ran out of battery. Okay, you know what? Wait. Okay, so are you coming back in? Wait. Oh, hey, hi, hello, Mabu, hi. Oh my God, welcome back. I was just saying how great of a person you are, so it's fine. It's all good.
What? I don't necessarily agree with that, but I appreciate that, and I return that observation to you.
Of course, so. Yes. Okay, I've talked enough. I know. What did you think about tonight's session? Was it good or?
I think it was good. I think, gosh, can I be like completely candid and honest?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. I think Ross is a good person.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that he's got like the right intentions, but I also think that this exposes what is potentially deficient about like revolutionary thinking, revolutionary thought in like the modern era.
Okay.
Which is that we had to like literally barrage this person with about an hour of questioning before he was willing to say that there is some kind of causative relationship between race and economic outcomes.
It
We
almost
had to fucking
it seemed like, because like in the essay, they literally like talk about like, oh yeah, this is true, like this bigotry is real, but like almost like almost contradicting when like then they say, well, almost like it's not, it shouldn't be emphasized as much, when it's like I'm not so sure about that.
It was only after like we literally provided this person with
surely the victims of said bigotry, might want to put some emphasis on this because it matters to them.
Yeah.
Like,
it matters to them. And like, as you and I were not victims of this, but like either you and I could provide numerous studies that substantiate this. And like I compiled numerous studies that substantiated this for the purpose of this conversation. And it was only after I was able to redundantly prove this strain of thought that he was willing to like even say that like, yeah, there's a causation between like, race and economic disparity.
mm-hmm.
But I had to like wrangle that out of this person.
It's like, I understand like it is true that all these things have been it's like a zombie that's like, it's a byproduct of a capitalist system, but like people aren't really looking at that when they first analyze it. Okay.
Yeah.
When they study racism, like slavery in American society, they look at it as the fact that, oh, white people own black people as slaves.
Yeah.
It's like, you got to acknowledge that first and understand it was specific oppression to African Americans. And then once you have that acknowledged, you then, educate and make people understand this is how this oppressive system is tied to capitalism, chattel slavery.
Yeah.
Like, that's the importance that, and I think that maybe that's what Ross is like emphasizing on, but like the essay seemed like it was too combative to just bell hooks. Yeah.
Even when I was talking to him, like trying to get him to say what we've been saying this whole time, like, race plays a very significant factor in how in the way that class plays a factor into like our politics. He was unwilling to concede that numerous times, where it was like, okay, race determines economic status. That's basically what I was repeating over and over again. And he was like basically repudiating that as much as he could, until I kept introducing new information that like, increasingly redundantly substantiated that fact, until finally he fucking said that there's a causative relationship between race and like economic status. That was the main thing to kind of extract from this.
I forgot to say this, but I guess I really should have added it. But like, you're talking about like Chile. I could have brought up the Philippines and how, there is, there's a struggle to get same-sex marriage passed and, transgender rights passed. But like, this is how the MPA, a Maoist organization, an organization that Ross would probably agree with a lot of things, this is how they used intersectionality to benefit them. They openly welcome gay and trans people. They are the first organization in the Philippines to conduct a gay marriage. Like, you were like, you guys can join us. But this is where, Ross may be interested in this. Like, the point is, like, we accept you, you're valid, but as a result of that, you need to play your part now in our cause to help others. Like, I think that is where I take from intersectionality, where like, you need to make it valid. Like, and I think from Ross's point, like, he wants to view class analysis as a melting pot, when in reality, like, we're a salad bowl. Like, we're all sharing this, but we're all still different and unique because we have unique experiences based on who we are, based on, not just class, but also as gender, as race, as ethnicity, as religion, even.
Yeah. I think there's another dividing line that's like very important, which is like, there are some people who like, fetishize and romanticize Marxism and Maoism And that's like literally the extent of their political analysis. And they're not willing to like integrate or incorporate new political realities into how they like observe and identify and react to the world.
You know, I don't want to say that Ross as it was being.
I'm not saying, well,
yeah,
I don't want to say that anybody's a part of this, but I think that like, you know, you can derive that kind of conclusion based on how certain people answer certain questions. Which is like anybody who's been alive since the 1960s should know that there's like an intersectional analysis with any of this kind of thing. And if you have to like, you know, basically ask a series of questions over the duration of an hour to finally extract that from them, then they're probably a little bit too committed to the Cretaceous period of Marxism or socialism.
I don't want to say
that's something. Yeah, that's something that I don't think superimposes itself nicely to modern politics, if I'm being completely honest. I think Ross is a nice guy. I think that he reads his theory. But in addition to reading theory, you also have to basically educate yourself about like current contemporaneous political realities.
You also got to meet people where they're at. Like, you know, I don't really, this is why I talk about racism and sexism first, because I guarantee you the person I'm talking to has no fucking like reading of theory of dialectical materialism or stuff like that. Like, I'm not gonna fucking assume that, like, and if I start talking like that, their eyes are gonna fucking glaze over. Like, I'm the IT guy that walked in and like, oh, please don't fucking teach me stuff. Like, hi Oliver, it's nice to see you.
Especially if all their political analysis is relegated to like, you know, how much like, you know, Marx's wife contribute to his like political analysis, and how much like Hegel can it contribute to like Marx's analysis. There is an intersectionality between class economics and race and ethnicity and sexual orientation. Anybody who kind of like stands oppositionally to these substantiated points is literally on the laughable side of history.
And this is,
and I'm sorry if I was like a little bit combative towards Ross, but it's
fine. It did get a little bit spicy. I didn't want him to like, I'm never coming back. Like, cause like they are a nice person. I don't want.
Yeah, they're nice. I know they're a nice person, but a lot of the things that they were saying were things that just do not withstand scrutiny. And that they're very dismissive towards the experience of marginalized communities. Whether
I think that discussion with like the, you know, your study on armed revolutionaries should have been a separate topic. I'm sorry, like we just didn't have the time for it, but it should be something we should cover later, because like that seems to be like a real tangential like difference that like you both have and like need to kind of suss out.
We can suss it out, but I already know how that conversation is going, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, no. All right.
Which is that he was making a statement about welfare states and how that placates the masses. And when we ascertain the political participation of welfare states, like, you know, France or South Korea, they outperform our political activation, and we have a far lesser welfare state than those states do.
My only contribution to that difference that you and Ross had was, again, I'm going to go back to the Philippines, is like, because the MPA is engaging what I think Ross would call like an armed struggle, and while they have not been defeated in the past 50 years, they also haven't succeeded, so they're part of that 0% rate. But what I also analyzed is how they complement your idea of mass movement, because they provide an apparatus of protection as well as distribution for people who don't necessarily want to join an armed struggle, but do want to engage in mass movement to better society. So what has formulated is the National Democratic Movement, which was developed by the MPA, by the Philippine Communist Party, but they operate on an intersectional basis. They allow, like, they're like, we may agree that a lot of these people are shit libs, but that what they are advocating for is more government accountability and reformist policies that benefit the working class. So we're okay with this. We're going to make a pact with the devil in this because it still complements us. And and in their eyes, where they'll fail, we will take up the reins and continue on.
Yeah. Well, guess what the coalition was like in the South Korea in the 1980s. It was like literally student activists, it was socialists, it was communists, and it was media elites.
Yeah.
It was only after the media elites joined the movement that they were actually able to exert the necessary amount of political pressure to usurp their dictator. And how did that happen? Fucking fascinating series of developments. So they were orchestrating general strikes. Those things are very necessary. Those things are very causative. But there was also an individual from those protests who was detained during that movement, and they were killed in police custody.
Yeah.
That's basically a demonstration of nonviolence, because after that happened, all the revolutionary coalition, they didn't just stand back and stand by. This isn't some fucking Donald Trump shit.
Right.
They maintained their pressure. They still weren't setting fires to their buildings or whatever. But by weaponizing that political moment, they also got the media elite on their side by not becoming overtly violent in that situation, which is an interesting dynamic.
No, I got
Because I'm sure when it came to you and I, if we heard that one of our allies died in detainment, the first thing that we would want to do is go fucking ballistic on some motherfuckers, because it's a very human response.
No,
but sometimes, here's the thing, is that sometimes what feels best and what works best are very different things. And by showing the necessary amount of restraint in the face of that injustice, they were actually able to recruit the elites, the bourgeoisie, into their cause. And only a series of years later, they were able to actually usurp their dictator from their position of power. So it's when it comes to revolutionary politics in the modern era, it's much more of a 4D chess situation than it is of a 2D chess situation, where it's each side has muskets. We'll see who fucking wins.
I gotcha.
I sympathize and I emotionally relate to a lot of people who want to take it out on their governments in a certain way. But as much as I emotionally identify with that, it's not about what I emotionally identify with. It's about what I've also understood to be most effective.
Also, take in
take
consideration the fact that maybe that's what the government wants you to do. They just want a fucking open excuse to fucking get more violent. Sometimes you have to be tactful with these things. It's I've been to a protest downtown Cleveland during the George Floyd riots, and what was it the police actively engage in antagonistic actions in order to induce a riot, just so they have an excuse to fucking mop shit up. So this is
or somebody plants the bricks so they could throw them through the walls.
Yeah, undercovers and all that. So just something to keep in mind. Are your actions extremely out of passion, or are they, are you being fooled as well? Two things can be true at once in that sense, I guess. But
another thing can be true too. It's possible to exert pressure against our elected officials without becoming necessarily violent. That's another thing that the South Korean revolutionaries proved in 2016 and 2017. They didn't storm the Capitol. What they did was that they descended on the Capitol building every day with millions of people until their president left office, because it was literally infringing on that country's ability to function properly.
Yeah.
And it's in this kind South Korea is actually a very good precedent, because they also have low unionization rates. They couldn't general strike, but even though they couldn't general strike, they still weaponized their population against the government, and that's something that can be done here as well. We have the Women's March, which lasts for a day and then everybody goes home. That's not how revolutionary politics work.
No,
it's not about showing up at your local government offices and saying that you're mad about something. You literally have to show up at your nation's capital in overwhelming numbers and insist that they capitulate to your demands until those demands are capitulated to. And that's what South Korea proved. But but this idea that people can arm themselves with muskets and take over their governments is really silly. So.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good place
Unfortunately.
to end it. That's a good place to end it. Well, yeah. That was good. I mean, I'm sorry we had to start late, but I knew it. I knew that this would be talked about during the entire session. Something in the back of my mind was like, yeah, there's gonna be some contention involved. That this is probably gonna be the only thing we're talking about today, which is fine. Like again, because like I feel like I'm biting off more than I chew in terms of like picking subjects that I want to talk about. So that's my fault. But no, I got some stuff. Oh no, you had something you wanted to bring up next week, right? Or want to give people a sneak preview before we end it, or? Did I put you on the spot? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
No, I don't mind. Like, hey, we can talk about like Matt Walsh's interpretation of colonialism.
We really need to. That was gonna be our first thing we could have covered. We still get to cover it.
Yeah,
it's almost like old news now, but like I really do want to cover it. I do have some things I want to say. We should just start with that first.
Like, we can. That's up to you as well. But like, it's like one thing I wanted to cover is like the role of like public intellectuals and like how wrong they could be before we turn their back. Before we turn like our collective backs on them. That's Barbarian's like weirdness with like her like terminology, umbrella terminology, and like, you know, how it like compares to like, you know, people like Vosh or Christopher Hitchens and like all those people who like, you know, made like serious mistakes.
That sounds perfect. Yeah, I also want to see you take more of the reins. I feel like and this may be just my generalized anxiety, but I feel like I'm not giving you a chance to like get your own topics in, and I feel bad. So.
Well, I don't mind not getting my topics in it. I just feel bad that I have to be the person who fights off all these like insane lunatics. I don't like revolutionary politics. I'm just messing with you.
maybe Ross would want to debate about something specific with you. Who knows? It's just.
Well, I feel like we just debated some specific things already.
Yeah. Well, I guess this is all right. We're gonna end it. So thanks everybody for watching. And when I mean everybody, I guess it's just Oliver. But thanks Oliver for stopping by. I gotta check out that streamer, by the way. What's the name of the streamer that he was on? What's their name? Pronouns? Luxander. Okay. Is that a woman, man, non-binary? I just want to make sure I'm like gendering them correctly. You don't know? Okay, my bad. Well, I guess we'll just end it here. So, bye everybody.
Love you, Mike. Love you, everybody. Bye bye.